Second white coat. Subscribe and like. Let's learn medicine together.
All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're basically playing medical detective. We've got a single, really strange symptom, and our job is to trace it all the way back through the brain's wiring to find exactly what's causing it. So it all kicks off with this one sentence from a patient. Her vision isn't blurry, it's not gone, it just feels narrower. Now that's a peculiar description. And, in medicine, those peculiar little clues are almost always the ones that blow the case wide open. So that's the big question, isn't it? How can this feeling of narrowing vision in just one eye point us to a very, very specific spot deep inside the skull? Well, let's follow the evidence and find out.
Okay, first things first, we need to meet our patient and get a handle on the background of this case.
Here's the file. We have a 66-year-old woman, and right away her history kind of points towards vascular issues. Things related to blood vessels. Think of these as the pre-existing clues. She's also had these temporary episodes of vision loss before, which tells us her circulatory system has been causing some trouble in the past. Now for our first major piece of evidence. We've got to translate her subjective feeling of narrowing vision into a precise medical diagnosis. What is actually going on?
And here we have it. The official term is right nasal hemianopia. Now I know that sounds like a mouthful, but let's break it down. Hemi just means half, and anopia means blindness. So it's blindness in the nasal half, that's the part of her vision closest to her nose, and it's only in her right eye.
This diagram here shows us the different ways your vision can be affected based on where a problem is. Now look at option D, right nasal hemianopia. You see how the vision in that right eye is just cut off on the side closest to the nose? That is exactly what our patient is experiencing. You can totally see how she would describe that sensation as her vision feeling narrower. Okay, now this slide illustrates a fundamental rule of optics that is absolutely key to solving our puzzle, and it's a little counterintuitive, so stick with me. Light coming from your nasal field of vision, the part near your nose, actually hits the outer part of your retina, which we call the temporal retina. Just lock that away in your brain. It's a crucial clue.
So before we can pinpoint the problem, the traffic jam if you will, we need a quick map of the visual highway. We need to understand the path that information takes to get from the eye to the brain. It's really a four-step journey. First, light hits the retina. Then, that signal zips down the optic nerve. All the signals meet up and kind of sort themselves out at this critical intersection called the optic chiasm. And from there, they continue their journey to the back of the brain to get processed. Right, this intersection, the optic chiasm, is where the real magic happens. The nerve fibers that come from the nasal or inner part of your retina, they actually cross over to the opposite side of the brain. But, and this is the important part for our case, the fibers from the temporal or outer part of the retina, they don't cross. They stay right on the same side. You have to remember this rule. Okay, let's move to the scene of the crime. We know what fibers are being affected, those temporal ones that don't cross. So now the question is, where are they located? So here's our crossroads, the optic chiasm. And what do we have sitting right next to it, on the very edge? The internal carotid artery. This is a major blood vessel, a really powerful neighbor. And its proximity is definitely not a coincidence. This, my friends, is our prime suspect. And now for the best part. This is the aha moment where we put all the pieces together. The patient's weird symptom, the visual field test, the rules of the visual highway, and the anatomy of the scene.
Looking at our map, the problem has to be right there, at location D. See? It's on the right side, and it's on the lateral or outer edge of the optic chiasm. This is the one specific spot that only contains those non-crossing fibers from the right eye's temporal retina. It all fits.
So what did the patient's MRI find? Exactly what we'd suspect. An aneurysm, which is basically a bulge, in that right internal carotid artery, our powerful next-door neighbor. This image just puts it all together so beautifully. The aneurysm is physically pushing on the side of the optic chiasm, and it's damaging those very specific uncrossed temporal fibers. And since those are the fibers responsible for the nasal field of vision, well, the result is a perfect right nasal hemianopia. Case closed.
And just to be absolutely sure, let's quickly check out the other possibilities. If the problem were smack in the middle of the chiasm, she'd lose her peripheral vision in both eyes, kind of like tunnel vision. If it were further back, she'd lose the same side of vision in both eyes. None of these other suspects fit the evidence. Our case is solid. So, after all that detective work, what's the one crucial point to take away from this whole investigation? Well, it can all be boiled down to one really elegant clinical pearl. Here it is. This is the big lesson. An aneurysm of the internal carotid artery is famous for causing vision loss on the nasal side of the same eye, and it does this by literally squishing the side of the optic chiasm and damaging those all-important non-crossing fibers. And that brings us right back to the beginning, full circle, a complex journey through neuroanatomy, all just to understand why one patient felt her vision was simply getting narrower. It just goes to show you how a single precise symptom can tell a remarkable story about what's happening deep inside the brain. Makes you wonder, what other simple clues are we missing every day?